Hi friends, today what we're going to talk about is a very important subject altogether, which is a part of every management school and every management course curriculum, which is known as principles of management. Now in the changing world today, now in the 21st century, principles and management are two important concepts. So basically in this topic, we will be talking about 5 parts. Each aspect or each individual part has a very important role to play, which has been required for a management process or a management purpose. Now the 5 concepts that we're going to study in detail in this course is management and its basics, planning, organizing, staffing and controlling. Now in unit 1 of the course, we will be studying about management and its basics. Now in this, we would be understanding concepts like what is management. Now like I initially started with saying that the 21st century coming in, the concept of management has changed altogether. The way companies function or organization functions has altogether taken an upside down turn. So in this unit, we would understand what exactly would you mean by the management of the 21st century. We would understand the features which are important for a management to be conducted in an organization, along with the objectives, the functions, the principles of management, and how universally management is almost the same with the same basic rules and regulations, but keeps changing and fluctuating as per the country norms or country standards. The very important concept that we will be understanding in this unit is obviously the difference between the administration and the management. Or you can say we would be comparing similarities and differences of administration and management. Now if I have to state this, what would be basically like? What this basically would be like. Now, not every cricketer can be a good batsman. Not every good batsman can be a good captain, and not every captain can be a good coach. So it's in simple language, that is how management and administration are to be compared. Both of them are a subset of each other, but also have a lot of differences. Like administration is more about building up policies, documentations, starting a company, it's setting up rules and regulations inside an organization. But management is how do you implement all of that. Now management is basically a skill also. So after we have understood the comparison between administration and management precisely, we would also understand how management is a science and an art, or is it both, or is it just the one? Briefly, it would basically mean now management obviously is a science because it requires a lot of theoretical a lot of knowledge in those perspectives. It is based on a lot of models, theories altogether, but it also is an art in the way you actually perform. Not every manager can be a good manager. Not every entrepreneur is a good manager. So it depends on person to person, the way an individual is, the way he or she is being brought up, and the kind of quality one had to be a manager. So management is a science or an art, is both or is just one, would be more detailedly taught or understood in the first unit itself. We would also understand the different levels of a management. Basically, we have 3 different levels of management: the lower level, the middle level, and the top level. The lower level obviously consists of the basic employees. It also consists about the supervisory staff, your clerical staff, your back-end staff, and all of that. The middle management consists of all the managerial levels. It is also known as a managerial level is because it consists of all the managers, all the general managers, the team leaders, all of them come into your middle levels. And finally, the top level obviously is about your CEO, CFO, the founders, the board of directors, the investors. So there are 3 different levels. Each level has its own importance, its own features and peculiarities. We would be understanding that also. We would also be understanding what are the skills required by an individual to become a good manager, which will obviously differentiate each individual from the other with the type of managers present across the globe, different styles of managers present in a single organization itself, and what are the functions and challenges, or what is the future, what is it based on, how is a management based on today, where are we heading tomorrow in the future, what are the challenges every manager or every organization has to face, would also be the details we would be looking into in the unit 1. Now in unit 2, the topic is planning. Now it's a very, very simple and a very, very interesting topic which we individually do in every day-to-day course also. So planning is very important is because it helps us understand that how and where we want to go. Planning is telling us what our goals are, what our objectives are. It helps us in defining a path. We say we have plan A, plan B, plan C. It gives us alternative options as to what can be an option if in case we are stuck somewhere. So before we head to any direction or we head to any destination, we start planning things. So planning is an individual perspective. It's done on a daily basis, but in this unit we will understand how planning is important in order to control the activities, to give direction to the activities, and also in order to understand the approach as to how do we start a particular task and where can we declare it as finished or accomplished. Now, the planning process is altogether around 8 to 9 stages, which will be detailedly taught, which majorly talks about the same thing that I've spoken about right now as to how do we do it, where do we want to head, our goals, our objectives, our course of actions, the responsibility, who's responsible, who will do which task, when do we declare it's been accomplished, at what point of time can we leave it if we feel this plan is not working out. All of this is a process and the principles of planning. And finally, we would understand what are the merits and the demerits of planning in terms of the details as to where can we say that we are successful in a planning and where do we have to leave it. How planning gives a channelization to the organization, and what are the problems one faces as an individual or a manager or maybe as an entrepreneur when they start planning things for the organization. Moving on to Unit 3. Unit 3 is about organizing. Now, since we've already planned as to where we want to head, we need to organize things, organize our resources, organize how we are going to do it, in which direction we are going to do, what are the things we're going to use, and what are the things we're going to leave behind gradually, some things that we're going to take together. So it's again a process of activity where we are defining clearly as to what is going to be used, what is not going to be used. A systematic way of arranging things is what organization is. We would obviously understand different organizing principles and functions. The most important concept that we would be understanding in this unit is span of control. Span of control basically means a responsibility one is being given over a period of time or during the recruitment into an organization. So span of control basically tells us as to what is there under one's individual control, what are the responsibilities one has to cater to, what decisions one is liable or is permissible to take in an organization. Now this is importantly understood is because we exactly understand that whom do we talk to for X issue or for Y issue. We clearly understand the hierarchy in an organization because of span of control. Lastly, the very important part that in organizing that we're going to understand is classification of organizations. Now, with the changing trends across the globe, with the 21st century creeping in, we've seen organizations have different ways of functioning. The hierarchy has altogether changed. It's no more a vertical one, it's more on the spreader way. So in classification of organization, we would understand different types of organizations which are present today. What are the ways in which they have their reporting or channelization of resources? What is the span of control and how is it managed? like simply we would understand what is a line in a staff organization, we would understand what is a functional organization, what's the difference between a formal organization and an informal organization. In this, we will also understand how organizations change from one country to another also majorly, or how the structure of the organization changes today from one country to another, from one industry to another, which is very important to understand depending on which industry you plan to work in the future. The unit 4 would be talking about staffing and directing. Now, staffing and directing is again an important concept. Now, staffing over here means recruitment. Okay. Now, it's an organization cannot be complete, or you cannot run an organization if you do not have employees working in an organization. And for an employee to work in an organization, it is very important to recruit people in an organization. So it's important to understand what staffing means, okay, from an HR perspective. What are the functions an HR has to look into when to talk about staffing? What is the process involved when they are looking out for a candidate? What do you mean by job description? What do you mean by the concept like recruitment? So these are basic things. We will also be talking about directing. Now, directing means what are the responsibilities or tasks or JDs, job descriptions of an individual or of a position when a person is asked to recruit, okay? Or when you are recruited in an organization, your job description is told initially. That job description basically means directing. Now over here, it's very important to understand that you cannot deviate from the job description until unless it is being told by your seniors. Job descriptions sometimes are very tricky. They have a lot of things inside under a single line. So that understanding of by an individual is very important in today's world. We would understand the principles, the functions of directing, and how it is important to take it on their own or to accept it when some task is being given to you or some responsibility is being shared upon you. Lastly, what this subject will talk about is controlling. Now, controlling means to have a control or to have some control over an organization or a span of activity. Now, it's very important to have enough control in an organization. Just by planning as to where you want to head is not enough. Channelizing your resources by organizing it and controlling that optimum use of those resources are being made every time the task is being to be accomplished, or every time you are heading into the next stage of accomplishing this task. That control is important. It's not just about resource controlling, but controlling of your employees so that the rules and regulations are maintained, so that the decorum is maintained, so that there is some ethical standards maintained in an organization. All this is controlling. So we need to understand the process of controlling. Very important is to understand the relationship between planning and controlling. Planning is, like I said, is one part. Controlling is another part. You plan as to where you want to head, what are your tasks, what are your objectives in an organization, and later on comes the controlling part where you control that whatever your plan of action was, you are moving in a similar direction. You are not diverting or deviating yourself from this plan of action, because the minute you deviate from the plan of action, the task or the objectives will change sometimes. So it is very important to understand that whatever you've planned is going as per that, and that is exactly the relationship between planning and controlling, and that is how it is going to work in an organization. There are different techniques of controlling in today's world, which is very important. Some organizations still are following the traditional methods of controlling, whereas some organizations today have accepted the modern techniques of controlling. In techniques of controlling part, we would be understanding the difference between the traditional methods and the modern approaches. What are the different techniques used? How modern approaches are being different? What are the new recent techniques in modern approaches of controlling? Now, I will not say in this that we will be telling that choose either of them, okay, in an organization to function. But every organization today is a mixed blend of modern approach and the traditional approach of controlling. So it will change, or you can see there's a little change in the traditional one, and that's how the modern ones are looked upon. But the basic concept of controlling remains the same, where you control the authority of in an organization, you control the responsibilities, the use of resources, and etc. in a working of an organization on a daily basis, and also sometimes on a task to task basis. So basically, if I have to sum up, principles of management is a very important subject today in any organization or any business school. The reason is it helps you in giving a fair view about what an organization is altogether made up, what are the different segments an organization is made up of, different concepts it is based on. The basic running of an organization is dependent upon what important things. 5 important things, management altogether, as to how and who is going to look into it. We will also be talking about planning in details in this subject. From planning, we move on to organizing different resources, different tasks, organization structure, which is very important part again. We will be talking about staffing and directing, where obviously we are talking about recruitment, the job descriptions, the different roles assigned in today's world at different organizational levels. What are the tasks one needs to have? What are the different job opportunities? How a single organization can have multiple job opportunities with some simple change in the direction of the responsibilities. And finally, the controlling part, which obviously forms the foundation, is because if you're not able to control your employees, the resources, the tasks, your day-to-day activities, the rules and regulations, the decorum, the ethical practices, the organization will not have a great future. So in order to have a long sustained future for the next millions of years and hundreds of years of an organization, it's very important to have these 4 things in place before you start or before you even look into a bigger perspective of your company. That's all which is going to be catering in principles of management. I hope you all have understood the basics, and it's going to be a very interesting subject where we will be looking into both the practical part in terms of case study solvings and also the theoretical knowledge, which is important because management is a science which is based on theories and models, and also an art which gives you a practical outlook as to how things change from one case or from one industry to the other, from one organization to another. Thank you, and hope to see you all soon again.